you want to know what's going on.
The mission of the Providence Athenaeum is to enrich the mind, inspire the spirit, and elevate the public discourse. It's a gathering place. Hi, my name is Kate Woodhouse. I'm the Director of Collections and Library Services at the Providence Athenaeum. An Athenaeum is a library or cultural center that's dedicated to the diffusion of knowledge. Athena is the patron goddess of wisdom. The Athenaeum predates the public library movement and art museums as we know it today by about 50 years. So this was a place for the whole community to come, not only to educate themselves, but also to see artworks that they wouldn't otherwise be able to have access to. The library first got some gifts of artwork, and just after it opened its doors, the first item was an enormous portrait of George Washington that greets people as they walk down the stairs here today. Just after that, we received 10 busts, illustrious personages, ancient and modern. Additional busts have been donated through the 19th century. They had something in common. All of the busts that were here were white men. Not unusual, obviously, especially for the time period. The bust project started several years ago with a very generous, transformative gift from members. The impetus behind this project was to bring in some diverse voices. They had to be writers, they had to resonate today. We wanted their works to be held in the institution and possibly have a connection to Rhode Island as well. So the three figures that we decided on were Frederick Douglass, Louisa May Alcott, and Mary Wollstonecraft. Frederick Douglass, I felt that he should be here. He was actually the first person we decided on. So one of the other things I discovered is that he had come to Rhode Island numerous times to lecture, and he was friends with some of the members of the Athenaeum. The first woman that we decided on was actually Louisa May Alcott. We have a first edition of Little Women. We wanted to honor Louisa May Alcott for her contributions to literature, but also her personal views on social reform. Mary Wollstonecraft, she's a proto-feminist. She wrote The Vindication of the Rights of Woman, and we have a very early edition from 1794. We've got busts of Byron, Keats, and Milton, and we thought that she should be honored like her male counterparts from the same period. Robert Shore was the first person that I called to ask questions and to determine what would be possible. So the first time I walked into Skylight Studios to meet Robert, I was just struck. It feels like a 19th century artist studio with works of art and sculpture everywhere. Robert typically is sitting doing his work underneath a massive skylight, and you're just surrounded by sculpture.
My name is Robert Shore, and I'm the owner of Skylight Studios. There's not a lot of studios like this left in the country, and most people say, oh, we think we're in Italy. The studio is actually over 100 years old, and it originated in Boston, and it went back a good 3 generations before myself. I was accepted at the museum school in Boston for graduate school in sculpture, and while I was studying there, I happened to meet, quite by coincidence, two world-famous sculptors who had a studio in Boston, and they were Arcangelo Cassieri and Adio Di Beccari. When I walked into their studio, in 5 seconds I knew that's what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. As they got older and couldn't work anymore, they kind of informally handed the torch over to me, and I took over the studio.
Caproni Galleries opened up the possibility of doing something in a very traditional manner, as we have already here in the library.
Pietro Caproni was from Italy, and he was a master craftsman. He made copies of all the great sculptures and busts from history, which you'd never get permission nowadays to do. He was esteemed as the highest quality plaster craftsman in the world. This is all handwork, done much the same as it was in the Renaissance.
Downstairs is where all of the action and the work takes place behind the scenes. These amazingly talented artisans just at work on the craft. And he's walked me through the process of how the sculptures are made.
Plaster is mixed by hand. And then it's applied in the mold by hand. We use burlap, which is a natural fiber to reinforce the inside of the plaster. It is very much similar to putting a cast on somebody's arm. So the plaster's the boss, really, more than the craftsman is. The plaster tells you what you need to do. And you're using your fingers really to feel the form of the mold, because you don't want to miss any places or get any voids. The fingers are the most important tool, even more than the eyes. Once the cast is done, we need to wait a little while and be patient, because the plaster has to become hard enough not to be damaged when the mold is stripped off. They have a good back for this job, for sure. That's why they're doing it and I'm not. Then you get a cast, and hopefully it's perfect because you did a perfect casting job. You can pick it up very easily, and it might weigh, maybe 20 pounds. So I'm very fortunate to be working with my daughter Lisa, who I will be handing the torch over to, just like it was handed over to me.
Robert is incredibly humble and gracious, so easy to work with. I'm really glad the way that the project evolved. I like the harmony of these new sculptures done in the traditional method and here on display with the brothers.
Watch more Art Inc. with new episodes uploaded every Wednesday on ripbs.org/artinc.